Hey guys! Tonight we're going to take a journey, not to the sun-drenched peaks of Mount Olympus or the bustling streets of ancient Athens, but far, far below the earth, into the realm that terrified every ancient Greek mortal. Imagine this. The air is cold, still, and heavy with the scent of damp earth and profound finality. You hear no birdsong, no human chatter, only the faint, distant lapping of unseen waters and the chilling whispers of unseen beings. This isn't the glorious afterlife of blissful gardens or heroic feasting. It's a vast, shadowy kingdom, a place of inescapable gloom and eternal twilight, ruled by a grim, unyielding deity who rarely smiles. You probably won't survive this without becoming a mere shade, stripped of your memories, or endlessly rolling a boulder. But we're going to dive into what Hades was actually like. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're feeling adventurous, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you guys are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported to ancient Greece, a civilization vibrant with philosophy, art, and democracy, but utterly dominated by its intricate and often terrifying mythology. For the ancient Greeks, death was not a finality in the sense of oblivion, but a terrifying transition to an underworld realm, a shadowy mirror of the living world, from which there was almost no return. This was the domain of Hades, the third son of Cronus and Rhea, brother to Zeus and Poseidon, and the unyielding ruler of the dead. The popular image of Hades in modern media sometimes portrays him as a misunderstood anti-hero, a dark but ultimately benevolent figure. But for the ancient Greeks, he was a feared, unyielding deity, whose domain was the realm of shadows and the deceased, and whose presence instilled profound dread. Mortals rarely invoked his name directly, preferring euphemisms like Pluto, the wealthy one, referring to the riches of the earth beneath his domain, or the unseen one, believing that speaking his true name might draw his attention and hasten their demise. Your perspective tonight is that of a newly arrived soul, or a rare mortal daring to glimpse this dreaded realm, silently witnessing the landscapes and inhabitants of the Greek underworld. You will confront the unyielding laws of this realm, the diverse fates of souls, and the chilling finality of death, realizing that the Greek afterlife was designed more to be endured than enjoyed. One mainstream historical fact that utterly shatters any romanticized view of the Greek underworld is that ancient Greek myths almost universally portrayed the afterlife, Hades' realm, as a bleak, shadowy, and insubstantial existence for the vast majority of souls in the Asphodel Meadows, characterized by a loss of memory and individual personality, without joy or purpose, and universally dreaded by the living, who preferred even the briefest moment of mortal life. Even heroes often lamented their fate in the underworld, finding eternal existence there profoundly unsatisfying. Think about it. Your idea of paradise is probably not an endless, gloomy field where you barely remember who you are. A particularly quirky tidbit that reflects the Greeks' nuanced and often depressing view of the afterlife, even for their greatest heroes, is the famous encounter between Odysseus and the shade of Achilles in Homer's Odyssey. When Odysseus, visiting the underworld, praises Achilles' status as a great hero even in death, Achilles famously replies that he would rather be the lowliest peasant alive, slaving for another, than king over all the dead. Imagine the greatest warrior in Greek history explicitly telling you that being a living beggar is better than being a dead king in the underworld. Confirming just how utterly uninviting their afterlife was, historians still argue whether the bleak portrayal of the Greek underworld, in contrast to the more optimistic afterlife beliefs of cultures like the Egyptians, remember their elaborate preparations for the afterlife from our Disturbing Secrets of Egyptian Mummification script, was primarily a reflection of a Greek cultural emphasis on the supreme value and vibrant joy of mortal life and earthly achievement, making the afterlife deliberately unappealing by comparison. Or if it also served a sociological purpose, encouraging civic engagement and heroic deeds in the present life by emphasizing that true glory and fulfillment were only found in the mortal realm, making death something to avoid at all costs. Was it about valuing mortal life, or just fearing eternal bleakness, that shaped the Greek underworld? As you descend deeper, the light from the mortal world fades, replaced by a perpetual twilight, a gloom that seems to seep into your very soul. The air grows cold, heavy, and silent, broken only by the distant sounds of wailing or the faint rustle of countless unseen shades. You feel a profound sense of finality, a chilling understanding that this is the realm of no return. You are now in Hades, and you're about to discover what it was actually like, a reality far grimmer than any myth. Having taken your first terrifying steps into the bleak landscape of the Greek underworld, your gaze now turns to the unyielding, formidable figure who presides over this realm of the dead Hades, the ruler grim, unyielding. Forget the benevolent, misunderstood deity sometimes seen in modern portrayals. The king of the underworld was a feared, incorruptible, and profoundly powerful god, whose very nature was defined by his dark domain, and whose justice, though absolute, was delivered with an unbending finality that instilled dread in mortals and even other Olympians. You quickly learn that his presence is synonymous with inescapable death, and that his will, once set, is as unyielding as the very rocks of his subterranean kingdom, turning his rule into a chilling, absolute authority from which there is no escape. It's like being subject to a king who literally never smiles, whose word is death, and whose entire kingdom is made of shadows and silence. You stand in the perpetual gloom of the underworld, where the air is cold, still, and carries the faint, earthy scent of ancient graves. Hades is rarely seen in the upper world, preferring the solemn quiet of his subterranean kingdom, but his presence here is absolute. He is often depicted as a shadowy, imposing figure, seated on a throne of ebony, accompanied by his terrifying three-headed dog, Cerberus, and often holding a scepter or a cornucopia symbolizing the wealth of the earth's minerals within his domain. He is not malevolent in the way Ares, the bloodthirsty god of war. From The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods. Section 10 is, but he is grim, unyielding, and profoundly indifferent to the joys and sorrows of the living. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines Hades's unbending nature is that Hades, unlike his brothers Zeus and Poseidon, rarely left his subterranean realm or interfered directly in the affairs of the living, preferring to remain a strict, impartial, and unyielding ruler over the dead, ensuring that souls who entered his domain remained there permanently, a characteristic that made him profoundly feared and rarely worshipped directly by mortals. His rule was about order and finality, not capricious whims. Think about it. Your ruler literally never leaves his gloomy office, and if you go in, you never come out. Imagine his presence. He commands the vast legions of the dead, his word absolute, his domain inescapable. He is the guardian of the natural order, ensuring that mortals, once dead, remain in their designated realm. His name itself was so feared by mortals that they often avoided speaking it aloud, using euphemisms like Pluto, the wealthy one, referring to the riches of the earth beneath his domain, or the unseen one, believing that uttering his true name might draw his attention and hasten their demise. Remember that quirky tidbit from Section 1 about Hades's euphemisms, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the grim solemnity and the Greeks' pragmatic respect for Hades's rule is the scarcity of temples or direct cults dedicated to him in the upper world, compared to other Olympians. While sacrifices were made to him, they were usually chthonic earthbound rituals performed at night, with offerings poured into the ground, a reflection of his dark, subterranean domain and the fear he inspired. Imagine a powerful god, but people are too scared to build him a proper temple in daylight, preferring to throw food into a hole in the ground for him instead. Historians still argue whether Hades's portrayal as a largely grim and aloof, rather than actively malevolent ruler of the underworld, primarily served to emphasize the natural, inescapable finality of death in Greek cosmology, making him a symbol of the ultimate boundary of human existence, or if his occasional negative actions, like the abduction of Persephone, which we'll address in the next section, highlight that even the most orderly of the gods could be profoundly self-serving and ruthless when pursuing their own desires. Was he a symbol of finality, or a hidden tyrant that defined his character? Hades's justice, within his domain, was grim but unwavering. He presided over the judgment of the dead, assisted by figures like Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, whom we'll discuss later. Section 10. Ensuring that each soul received its due in the afterlife, whether eternal torment in Tartarus, blessed serenity in the Elysian fields, or an endless, aimless wandering in the asphodel meadows. His decisions were absolute, without appeal, a chilling certainty in a world where mortal justice was often arbitrary recall. Divine justice unpredictable, harsh, from Section 13 of Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myths Sucked. Even other gods often feared or respected Hades's authority, preferring to avoid his grim realm unless absolutely necessary. Zeus himself, the supreme tyrant, from Section 2 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods, despite his supreme power, rarely dared to directly challenge Hades's rule over the dead, acknowledging the unyielding boundaries of his brother's domain. Poseidon, the god of the sea, might cause chaos in the upper world, but his realm did not extend to the depths of the underworld. Hades's power was not flashy like Zeus's lightning, or tumultuous like Poseidon's storms, but quiet, pervasive, and utterly absolute over the deceased. A cold, inescapable grip that encompassed all mortality. His character, though often depicted as unfeeling, was also occasionally shown with moments of, dare we say, pragmatism, or even a strange sense of possessiveness over his domain. He was rarely concerned with the affairs of the living, only with ensuring the constant flow of souls into his kingdom and the maintenance of order within his realm. His grim focus on his duties made him both feared and, in a strange way, respected for his unwavering consistency. You feel the chilling stillness of the air, the profound sense of finality that permeates his domain, and the terrifying knowledge that his presence means an absolute end to all earthly concerns. You gaze into the vast, shadowy expanse of the underworld, realizing that living under his unyielding gaze means confronting your own mortality, and that his will, however grim, is beyond challenge. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about his grim kingdom. It's about his unbending, absolute rule. Your very soul is subject to his domain, transforming his presence into a constant, terrifying shadow of inescapable death and an unchosen fate, ensuring that his grim reign over the deceased and his chilling adherence to cosmic law were terrifying reminders of the absolute and often brutal finality of the cosmic order. Having confronted the unyielding rule of Hades himself, your understanding of his grim domain now shifts to the reluctant, yet immensely powerful figure who shares his subterranean throne. Persephone, abducted queen. Forget a willing partner or a romantic connection to the king of the dead. Persephone, the goddess of spring and innocence, was brutally abducted and forced into marriage by Hades, transforming her from a vibrant symbol of life into the somber queen of the underworld, forever bound to a realm she never chose. You quickly learn that even divine beauty and purity offer no protection against the arbitrary desires of powerful gods, and that her unique position as both the bringer of spring and the ruler of the dead makes her a figure of profound, unsettling duality. It's like being forced into a marriage with the dark lord of the underworld, and your only escape is a partial one, still binding you to a place you despise, turning your existence into a chilling compromise. You stand in the perpetual gloom of the underworld, perhaps near Hades' ebony throne, and you observe Persephone. She is often depicted as a solemn, beautiful goddess, holding a torch or a sheaf of grain, reflecting her dual nature. Her presence, while perhaps not as overtly terrifying as Hades's, carries a profound sense of melancholy, a quiet sadness that permeates the shadows of her kingdom. She is the queen, powerful and revered, but her power stems from a traumatic beginning, a violent rupture from the world of light. One mainstream historical fact that utterly shatters any romanticized view of their union is that the central myth of Persephone involves her brutal abduction by Hades, who dragged her to the underworld against her will to be his queen, an act that caused profound grief to her mother Demeter, leading to widespread famine on Earth, and ultimately resulted in Persephone's forced, cyclical existence between the realms of the living and the dead. Her story is a tale of divine sexual violence and subsequent forced marriage, not a love story. Think about it. Your idea of a royal wedding might be joy. Theirs was a terrifying kidnapping. Imagine the sudden, terrifying moment of the abduction. Persephone, innocent and unaware, is gathering flowers in a sunlit meadow, far from her mother Demeter's watchful eye. Suddenly, the earth splits open beneath her feet, a chasm tearing through the vibrant ground. Hades, in his chariot pulled by black horses, bursts forth from the depths, seizes her, and drags her screaming into the terrifying darkness of his realm, the chasm closing behind them with a horrifying finality. Her cries are unheard by her distraught mother, her pleas unanswered, her fate sealed by the sudden, brutal act of a god pursuing his desires with absolute impunity. The sheer violation, the terror of being ripped from the familiar world of light and forced into an eternal, unchosen union, is profound, shaping her very identity. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the grim pragmatism of the Greek gods and the subtle way destiny was fulfilled is the detail of the pomegranate seeds. After her abduction, Persephone refused to eat anything in the underworld, hoping to avoid being permanently bound to it. However, Hades, using cunning or force, managed to get her to consume a few pomegranate seeds. The number varies, often 6 or 4. By partaking of the food of the dead, She was ritually bound to remain in the underworld for a portion of each year, typically a third or a half, depending on the myth. Imagine a single fruit literally sealing your fate for months out of every year, condemning you to an unwanted marital existence in the land of the dead, simply by consuming a few seeds. Historians still argue whether the myth of Persephone's abduction and her subsequent cyclical return to the upper world was primarily an allegorical explanation for the changing seasons and the cycle of death and rebirth in agriculture, providing a mythological framework for understanding natural phenomena like winter and spring. Or if it also reflected a deeper societal anxiety about the forced marriages of young women in ancient Greece, projecting human patriarchal practices and the lack of female consent onto the divine realm, thereby normalizing such power dynamics and the inevitable loss of a daughter to her husband's household. Was it about natural cycles or societal norms that shaped Hades's disturbing actions? Persephone's unique existence is a tragic compromise. For part of the year, she reigns as queen of the underworld, grim and somber, sitting beside Hades. For the other part, she returns to the upper world, bringing spring and new growth as her mother Demeter rejoices. Remember Demeter's devastating grief and punishment. Section 11 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods, where she caused a global famine in her sorrow. This cyclical return highlights her dual nature. She is both the youthful goddess of spring and the mature queen of the dead, forever marked by her abduction. Her power in the underworld is significant. She is the queen, respected by the shades and feared by those who would defy her husband. She sits in judgment alongside Hades. Recall those judges of the dead. Section 10. And her word carries weight in the realm of the deceased. Yet, her rule is inherently unchosen, a destiny imposed upon her by force. Even other gods tread carefully around her, acknowledging her traumatic past and her unique authority over the dead. Her profound sadness is palpable, a constant reminder of the violence that shaped her eternal role. Her story is a chilling example of divine desire overriding consent, and the lasting consequences of such brutal acts. You feel the cold sadness emanating from her, the profound sense of a life divided, a joy forever tinged with sorrow. You gaze upon her solemn beauty, realizing that her immense power comes at the price of her personal freedom, forever bound to a realm she never desired. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about his grim kingdom. It's about his powerful, unyielding will and the disturbing reality of Persephone, his abducted queen. Your very understanding of the underworld is shaped by her forced presence, transforming her tragic story into a chilling testament to the terrifying consequences of unchecked divine desire, and humanity's profound vulnerability when caught in the inescapable grip of cosmic power and a violent, unchosen fate. Having glimpsed the grim existence of Persephone, the abducted queen of the underworld, your journey into Hades's domain now brings you to its first, unavoidable, and chilling gateway, Charon Ferryman's Toll. Forget a simple boat ride. Crossing into the Greek afterlife meant confronting the aged, silent ferryman, Charon, who demanded a payment to transport souls across the dreaded river Styx or Acheron, leaving countless impoverished or unburied dead forever stranded on the bleak shores, condemned to a restless, hopeless limbo. You quickly learn that even in death, money, or the lack thereof, dictates your ultimate fate, and that a single coin can be the difference between eternal passage and perpetual despair. It's like arriving at the most important border crossing of your life, but if you don't have the exact fare, you're stuck in a miserable, never-ending waiting line forever. You stand on the desolate, shadowy banks of a wide, dark river, its waters murky and silent. The air is cold, still, and heavy with the pervasive odor of damp earth and profound sadness. You see countless other shades, indistinct, mournful figures, milling about on the shore, their ghostly forms drifting aimlessly, their whispers like the rustle of dry leaves. This is the river Styx, one of the 5 rivers that separate the land of the living from the underworld, and its crossing is the first, essential step for every soul. Then, you spot him, Charon, the ancient ferryman of the dead. He is often depicted as a grim, gaunt figure, with a long, unkempt beard, his eyes piercing and devoid of warmth. He wields a long pole, expertly maneuvering his small, crude boat through the dark waters. He is utterly indifferent to your pleas, your laments, or your status in the living world. His only concern is the fair. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines this crucial ritual of passage is that in ancient Greek funerary customs, it was imperative to place a koinobole under the tongue or in the hand of the deceased before burial, as this coin was believed to be the payment for Charon, the ferryman, to transport their soul across the river Styx into the underworld. Without this toll, the soul was condemned to wander the riverbanks eternally. This practice ensured that even the poorest received a minimal burial rite to secure their passage. Think about it. Your access to the afterlife literally depends on whether someone remembered to slip a penny in your mouth. Imagine the desperate plight of those who lacked the coin. You see shades, their forms more indistinct, their mournful wails more piercing, eternally wandering the bleak banks of the river, forever unable to cross. They might reach out, their ghostly hands pleading, as Charon's boat glides silently past them, carrying those who paid the toll. This fate, an eternity of restless limbo, was profoundly feared by the ancient Greeks, a terrifying consequence of an improper burial or profound poverty. To be unburied, or to lack the coin, meant no rest, no passage, no true entry into the afterlife. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the Greeks' pragmatic view of this transaction is that Charon was notoriously incorruptible and utterly indifferent to the status or suffering of the souls before him. He accepted only the coin, showing no favoritism to kings or heroes, and no pity for the impoverished. His role was purely that of a transporter, a cosmic bus driver who simply collected his fare. Imagine trying to argue with the most stoic, unfeeling ferryman imaginable, knowing he won't budge an inch without his pay, even if you're a king and you literally just died. Historians still argue whether the myth of Charon's ferry and the obol payment was primarily a pragmatic way for ancient Greek society to ensure that proper burial rites were performed for all deceased individuals by providing a strong incentive, linking post-mortem fate directly to funerary customs, or if it also served a deeper symbolic purpose, emphasizing the universal equality of death and the transactional nature of all passages, even spiritual ones, in a world where economic realities permeated every aspect of life. Was it about promoting proper burial, or about symbolizing universal economic reality in death? The coin, the obol, was often specifically a small copper or silver coin placed beneath the tongue of the deceased. This ensured it wouldn't fall out during the burial process and would be readily available for Charon's collection. For families, ensuring this small payment was meticulously placed was a vital part of the funeral rites, a desperate final act to secure their loved one's peaceful journey into the underworld. Charon himself was rarely worshipped directly by mortals. He was simply a figure of grim necessity, a part of the inevitable transition. His boat, often described as leaky and creaking, was simply a vessel for passage, not a source of comfort. The journey across the river was swift, silent, and final, leading directly into the heart of Hades' realm. You feel the cold, still air on the riverbank, hear the mournful wails of the uncrossed shades, and the chilling silence from Charon as he eyes your mouth, seeking his payment. You grasp the tiny coin, feeling its cold weight, and you realize that this seemingly insignificant piece of metal holds the key to your eternal rest. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or abducted queen. It's about the brutal reality of Charon and his toll. Your very passage to the afterlife is a cold, final transaction, transforming death from a release into a terrifying moment of financial reckoning, ensuring that even in oblivion, the chilling reality of poverty and the unyielding demands of payment could condemn a soul to perpetual, hopeless wandering, a constant reminder that for the ancient Greeks, even death came with a price, and that the only ticket to the underworld was a single, precious coin. Having paid the grim toll to Charon and crossed the dark, silent waters of the Styx, your journey into Hades' domain now brings you to its terrifying, final threshold, Cerberus Gatekeeper's fury. Forget a simple welcome mat. Guarding the entrance to the underworld was a monstrous, multi-headed beast, whose perpetual growl and unyielding vigilance ensured that no living soul could enter without permission, and no dead soul could ever escape, transforming the very gateway to the afterlife into a horrifying, snarling barrier of absolute finality. You quickly learn that your passage into the realm of the dead is meticulously guarded, and that bypassing this ferocious guardian means risking being torn to pieces by a living embodiment of Hades' unbending will. It's like arriving at the pearly gates. Only the gatekeeper is a giant, snarling, three-headed dog that will rip you limb from limb if you try to sneak in or out. You step off Charon's creaking boat onto the bleak, desolate shore on the other side of the Styx. The air is cold, still, and heavy with a profound sense of finality. In the perpetual gloom of the underworld, you hear it a low, guttural growl, echoing through the shadows, growing louder with every step. Then, through the mists, you see him. He is colossal, a terrifying, three-headed hound, his eyes glowing with an infernal light, his powerful bodies rippling with muscle. This is Cerberus, the offspring of the monstrous Typhon and Echidna, brother to other terrifying creatures like the Lernaean Hydra and the Chimera, and the unyielding guardian of the underworld's gates. His presence is enough to strike terror into the heart of any living being, and to fill the shades of the dead with a chilling resignation. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines Cerberus's terrifying role is that Cerberus, the monstrous three-headed hound, was the unyielding guardian of the gates of the Greek underworld, ensuring that no living mortal could enter without special permission or by trickery, and crucially, that no deceased soul could ever escape Hades' realm, thereby reinforcing the absolute finality of death in Greek mythology. His ferocity was legendary, making him an embodiment of the underworld's inescapable nature. Think about it. Your final destination is guarded by a giant, terrifying dog, and he never sleeps. Imagine confronting him. His three heads would be constantly alert, sniffing the air, growling menacingly. His sharp teeth, capable of tearing flesh, are bared. His tail might be tipped with a serpent's head, or even a cluster of snakes, further adding to his horrifying appearance. His very presence is a profound deterrent, An unyielding symbol of Hades's authority. Remember Hades, the grim, unyielding ruler from Section 2. He is utterly loyal to his master, incorruptible by bribes, and immune to pleas. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the rare, ingenious, and often perilous methods used by heroes to bypass Cerberus without resorting to outright combat, which would be suicidal, is the use of music, honeycakes, or even sheer strength. Orpheus, the legendary musician, famously charmed Cerberus with his lyre and enchanting song, lulling the beast to sleep to enter the underworld. Psyche distracted him with honeycakes laced with a sleeping potion. And Heracles, in one of his impossible labors, famously subdued Cerberus through sheer brute strength, wrestling him into submission and dragging him to the upper world, though he soon returned. Imagine needing to be a legendary musician, a master baker with sedative-laced treats, or the strongest man alive, just to get past a dog. Historians still argue whether the consistent portrayal of Cerberus as a physical, fearsome guardian of the underworld, rather than a purely symbolic figure, primarily served to reinforce the terrifying finality of death in ancient Greek belief, making the underworld a truly inescapable realm, or if his occasional susceptibility to mortal trickery or divine intervention also served a mythological purpose, allowing for rare, dramatic tales of mortals defying death, thereby highlighting the exceptional nature of heroes who could overcome even the most formidable cosmic barriers. Was he an ultimate barrier, or just a plot device for heroes? Cerberus's primary duty is to prevent the living from entering the underworld without permission, and, more importantly, to ensure that the deceased souls who cross the Styx remain in Hades's realm, never escaping back to the land of the living. He is the ultimate gatekeeper, the unbending enforcer of the boundary between life and death. His constant vigilance is a testament to the absolute finality of the Greek afterlife. His ferocity is legendary. Any living mortal who attempted to sneak past him would be torn to pieces, their flesh ripped from their bones by his 3 sets of fangs. Any shade attempting to escape would be driven back into the gloomy depths with a terrifying roar. He embodies the brutal, unyielding nature of Hades's rule, ensuring that the underworld remains a one-way destination for all souls. Even other gods rarely ventured near him without good reason. Acknowledging his terrifying power and his unwavering loyalty to Hades, his presence is a constant reminder that once you enter the realm of the dead, your journey is final, and escape is impossible. You feel the cold dread emanating from his massive, snarling form, hear the low, guttural growl of his 3 heads, and witness the terrifying power he wields as the ultimate barrier. You grasp your obol the coin for Charon. From Section 4, grateful for the brief reprieve the ferryman provided, knowing that this monstrous guardian is the true seal on the underworld. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about his grim ruler or his abducted queen. It's about the terrifying reality of Cerberus, the gatekeeper's fury. Your very entry into the afterlife is defined by a colossal, 3-headed hound, transforming death's passage into a chilling confrontation with an unyielding, ferocious guardian, ensuring that your final destiny in the underworld was sealed by the terrifying presence of a monster designed to make escape utterly, terrifyingly impossible. A constant reminder of the absolute finality of the Greek afterlife. Having successfully, or perhaps terrifyingly, bypassed the fearsome Cerberus, the unyielding guardian of the underworld's gates, your journey into Hades's domain now plunges you into its profound geographical and symbolic structure. 5 rivers boundaries of death. Forget pleasant streams or navigable waterways. The Greek underworld was crisscrossed by a network of 5 distinct, often terrifying, rivers, each embodying a different aspect of mortal suffering and eternal consequence, serving as crucial boundaries and psychological tormentors for the deceased. You quickly learn that your passage through the afterlife isn't just a straight path, but a grim traversal of liquid divisions, each carrying its own chilling legacy and profound symbolic meaning. It's like being forced to navigate a series of very unpleasant, very mystical waterways, where each river literally embodies a different type of suffering. And you're just trying to get to your final destination without falling in. You move deeper into the perpetual gloom of the underworld. The air cold and still, the silence broken only by the distant wails of unseen shades. After crossing the Styx, remember that grim ferryman, Charon. From Section 4, you become aware of other waterways, their currents dark and foreboding, each stretching into the vast, shadowy expanse, marking distinct realms within Hades' domain. These rivers are not just geographical features, they are ancient, powerful entities, fundamental to the very structure and theology of the Greek afterlife, embodying the sorrows and pains of mortal existence that continue even beyond death. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the Greek cosmological structure of the afterlife is that the Greek underworld was traditionally described as being bordered and traversed by 5 principal rivers: the Styx hatred to oath-swearing, Acheron sorrow, Cocytus lamentation, Phlegethon fire, and Lethe forgetfulness, each embodying a distinct emotional or physical aspect of death and serving as a boundary or a feature within the realm of the dead. Navigating these rivers was an essential part of a soul's journey. Think about it. Your idea of a final resting place might be a peaceful field. Theirs was a land intersected by rivers of burning fire and absolute forgetfulness. Imagine encountering each river. You've already crossed the Styx, the river of hatred. Its waters often associated with unbreakable oaths sworn by the gods. Its crossing, for which you paid Charon, marked your definitive entry into the underworld, severing your ties with the living world. The air near it still carries a faint, acrid scent, a reminder of its powerful, corrosive nature for those who dared to break sacred vows. Then comes the Acheron, the river of woe or sorrow. Its banks are often described as being lined with those souls who never truly reached the underworld. The poor or unburied remember those who couldn't pay Charon Section 4. Its waters are choked with the laments of the suffering, a constant, mournful murmur that chills you to the bone. To traverse it is to walk through a landscape of perpetual grief, a chilling reminder of the sorrows of mortal life that linger even in death. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the Greeks' psychological insight even within their mythology is the concept of the river Cocytus, the river of lamentation or wailing. This river, believed to be formed from the tears of the unburied dead or those suffering in the underworld, flowed into the Acheron, its very waters a tangible manifestation of unending grief and despair. Imagine a river literally made of tears, a chilling embodiment of profound, eternal sorrow that you must witness on your journey through the afterlife. Historians still argue whether the elaborate and emotionally evocative descriptions of the underworld's rivers, like the Cocytus being formed from tears, were primarily allegorical representations, designed to help ancient Greeks visualize and cope with the abstract emotional landscapes of grief, suffering, and oblivion associated with death. Or if these detailed mythical geographies also served a deeper purpose in reinforcing societal norms, e.g., the importance of proper burial rites to avoid eternal wandering and instilling fear of divine punishment, thereby controlling mortal behavior through terrifying posthumous consequences. Was it about processing emotion or reinforcing piety that made the rivers so grim? Next, you might glimpse the Phlegethon, the river of fire. Its waters, not of liquid but of molten fire, flowed through the fiery depths of Tartarus or around its outer edges, burning those who dared to approach. Its banks glow with an infernal light, and the air is thick with the smell of sulfur and burning flesh, a terrifying vision of eternal torment. For the wicked, a preview of Tartarus itself, which we'll delve into later in Section 8. To merely approach its shores is to feel the scorching heat, a chilling reminder of the agonizing fates awaiting the truly damned. Finally, there is the Lethe, the river of forgetfulness or oblivion. This river holds a profound psychological terror. Souls who drank from its waters would instantly forget their mortal lives, their memories, their loves, their sorrows, everything that made them who they were. This act of forgetting was often a necessary preparation for their eternal existence, severing their ties to the past, but it was also a terrifying loss of self, a complete erasure of identity. To lose your memories was, in many ways, to cease to truly exist as an individual, a profound and quiet horror. These rivers, each with its unique character and chilling significance, formed the intricate boundaries and pathways of Hades's domain. They were not merely physical features, but profound symbolic representations of the emotional and existential challenges of death, from the sorrow of loss to the terror of damnation and the ultimate oblivion of the self. Your journey through the underworld is a constant traversal of these grim, liquid divisions, each a terrifying reminder of the multifaceted nature of death and its enduring consequences. You feel the cold dread of the air, hear the distant lamentations, and perhaps catch the scent of smoke or sulfur as you navigate these treacherous waterways. You gaze at their dark currents, knowing that they separate not just lands, but destinies. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its terrifying guardian. It's about the brutal reality of its 5 rivers. Your passage through the afterlife is a continuous confrontation with these liquid boundaries of death, transforming your eternal journey into a grim traversal of profound emotional and existential suffering, ensuring that your final destiny was etched into the very waters that flowed through the terrifying depths of the Greek underworld, a constant reminder of the multifaceted and often bleak nature of oblivion. Having traversed the grim, symbolic rivers that define the boundaries of the Greek underworld, your journey now brings you to the vast, central, and profoundly depressing realm that awaits the vast majority of deceased souls, the Asphodel Meadows' bleak existence. Forget fiery torments or blissful rewards. This was the default afterlife for most mortals, a shadowy, dreary, and utterly purposeless realm where the shades of the dead wandered aimlessly, bereft of memory, joy, or genuine individuality, condemned to an eternity of profound insignificance. You quickly learn that death is not a dramatic event, but a chilling descent into an endless, monotonous twilight, turning your final destiny into a source of pervasive dread for any mortal. It's like being promised an eternal vacation, but it turns out to be a very long, very boring stay in a perpetually cloudy, gray waiting room, where everyone is a bit sad, and absolutely nothing interesting ever happens. You stand on a vast, featureless plain, stretching endlessly into the perpetual gloom. The air is cold, still, and heavy with a profound sense of melancholy and utter emptiness. There are no sounds of laughter, No songs, no vibrant human activity. Instead, you hear only the faint rustle of dry leaves, the occasional mournful whisper from unseen shades, and the chilling silence that permeates everything. The ground beneath your feet is barren, covered only in the pallid gray flowers of the asphodel, a plant associated with death. The light, if it can even be called that, is a dim, perpetual twilight, a sunless gloom that offers no warmth or cheer. One mainstream historical fact that utterly shatters any romanticized view of a glorious afterlife for most Greeks is that the asphodel meadows were the most common destination for the vast majority of deceased souls in ancient Greek mythology. Portrayed as a bleak, shadowy, and insubstantial realm where shade spirits wandered aimlessly, stripped of their vibrant memories and personality, experiencing a dull, purposeless, and profoundly unsatisfying eternal existence, universally dreaded by the living. Even heroes often expressed profound misery and regret when condemned to this fate. Think about it. Your idea of a final reward might be paradise. Theirs was basically eternal boredom. In the dark, imagine the countless shades around you. They drift aimlessly, their forms insubstantial, barely more than fleeting shadows. Their faces are blank, their eyes devoid of recognition. Most have drunk from the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Remember from Section 6, stripping them of their vibrant mortal memories, their individual personalities, and all the joys and sorrows that defined their earthly lives. They exist in a state of profound oblivion, a chilling form of mental death that makes them mere echoes of who they once were. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the Greeks' profound sense of despair about this common afterlife is the practice, in some funerary rites, of providing a small tube or pipe from the grave leading up to the surface, allowing offerings like wine or honey to be poured down for the deceased, not just for sustenance, but sometimes believed to help them retain some glimmer of memory or awareness in the otherwise bleak asphodel meadows. Imagine needing a literal straw to the surface just to remember who you are in the afterlife. A desperate attempt to stave off profound oblivion. Historians still argue whether the bleak portrayal of the asphodel meadows primarily served as a pragmatic deterrent for ancient Greeks, encouraging them to live virtuous and productive lives on Earth by making the afterlife undesirable, thereby emphasizing the supreme value of mortal existence, or if it was also a philosophical reflection on the inherent tragedy of death and the ephemeral nature of human consciousness, acknowledging that even the greatest life eventually fades into insignificance. Was it about promoting earthly virtue, or simply a grim acceptance of oblivion, that made the meadows so bleak? There is no joy here, no purpose, no meaningful activity. The shades engage in no meaningful conversation, no grand feasts, no heroic endeavors. They simply exist, a vast multitude of forgotten selves, perpetually wandering a gray, monotonous landscape. This profound lack of engagement, this utter absence of meaning, was considered a chilling fate for the ancient Greeks, who valued vivid life, intellectual pursuit, and active participation in society. Even heroes and kings, if they did not merit the Elysian fields which we'll explore later. Section 9. Found themselves here, lamenting their fate. Achilles, the greatest Greek warrior, famously declared to Odysseus, remember their encounter from Section 1, that he would rather be the lowliest peasant alive than king over all the dead in this dreary realm, underscoring the universal dread of this bland, purposeless existence. His immense earthly glory meant nothing in the face of this eternal ennui. The judges of the dead, whom we'll meet in Section 10, impartial as they were, still condemned the vast majority of souls to this realm, not for their sins, but simply because their lives were not exceptional enough to merit true paradise, nor wicked enough to warrant Tartarus. It was the ultimate middle ground, a universal and universally dreaded mediocrity. You feel the cold, still air, the profound sense of emptiness, and the chilling realization that this is what awaits most mortals. You gaze at the blank faces of the wandering shades, knowing that your own memories, your own vibrant personality, could one day fade into such an indistinct shadow. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its terrifying guardian. It's about the brutal reality of the Asphodel Meadows. Your eventual destiny is an eternal, bleak, and purposeless existence, transforming death from a release into a chilling plunge into profound insignificance, ensuring that the heavy price of mortality was paid not just in life's suffering, but in a long, monotonous, and utterly joyless oblivion. A constant reminder of humanity's profound dread of fading into utter meaninglessness in the vast, gray expanse of the Greek underworld. Having traversed the bleak and monotonous Asphodel Meadows, where most souls drift in a joyless twilight, your journey into Hades's domain now descends into its deepest, darkest, and most terrifying abyss, Tartarus' eternal torment. Forget simple oblivion. This was the horrifying prison for the most wicked, the most sacrilegious, and those who dared to defy the gods, a realm of unimaginable suffering where the condemned endured endless, agonizing punishments meticulously designed to match their sins, transforming their afterlife into a perpetual nightmare of torment. You quickly learn that divine justice, when truly unleashed, is a force of terrifying, creative cruelty, and that defying the Olympians comes with a price that literally lasts for eternity. It's like being trapped in a very personalized, very painful, and absolutely inescapable cosmic torture chamber, where your punishment is uniquely tailored to your worst crime, and it never, ever stops. You stand at the edge of a vast, gaping chasm, stretching endlessly downwards into the profound gloom. The air here is thick with the scent of sulfur, the distant sounds of ceaseless wailing, the clanging of chains, and the faint, chilling screams of unimaginable agony. This isn't the quiet melancholy of the Asphodel Meadows. It's a cacophony of suffering, a place of active, relentless, and eternal punishment. This is Tartarus, the deepest pit of the underworld, a primordial abyss even below Hades's palace, where the most notorious sinners and defeated enemies of the gods were confined. Its very existence is a chilling testament to the terrifying wrath of the Olympians and the severity of divine justice. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the ultimate horror of the Greek underworld is that Tartarus was the deepest and darkest region of the Greek underworld, serving as a cosmic prison for the most heinous sinners like Tantalus, Sisyphus, and defeated divine enemies like the Titans, where they endured eternal, agonizing, and often symbolic punishments meticulously tailored to their transgressions, representing the most severe form of divine retribution and a place of absolute, inescapable torment. Its grim reality was meant to instill fear in both mortals and gods. Think about it. Your idea of a bad prison is a small cell. Theirs was an infinite abyss of eternal, personalized torment. Imagine the agonizing fates of the famous inhabitants. You might see Sisyphus, a cunning mortal who famously cheated death multiple times. For his deception and arrogance, a classic example of hubris. Remember that from Section 5, he was condemned to eternally roll a massive boulder up a steep hill. You watch as he strains, pushing the stone inch by agonizing inch, his muscles bulging, his sweat pouring. Just as he nears the summit, the boulder inevitably slips from his grasp, rolling back down to the bottom, forcing him to begin the futile, endless labor all over again. His torment is physical, but also profoundly psychological, an eternal, meaningless struggle, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the gods' perverse creativity in devising punishments and their long memory for grudges is the specific nature of Tantalus's torment. For daring to test the gods' omniscience by serving them his own son in a feast, a horrific act of sacrilege. Tantalus was condemned to stand in a pool of water with delicious fruit hanging just above his head. Yet, whenever he tried to drink, the water receded, and whenever he reached for the fruit, the branches moved just out of reach, condemning him to eternal hunger and thirst. Recall this example from Divine Justice Unpredictable, Harsh in Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myth Sucked. Section 13. Imagine being perpetually tormented by the very things you desire most, forever just out of reach. A cosmic prank designed to inflict endless psychological agony. Historians still argue whether the detailed and often gruesome descriptions of Tartarus's punishments, by providing a vivid and terrifying vision of eternal retribution for moral transgressions, primarily served as a powerful deterrent against impious behavior and a reinforcement of ethical norms in ancient Greek society, or if these narratives also reflected a deeper cultural fascination with suffering and the limits of human endurance, making the punishments a dramatic exploration of extreme torment. Was it about moral instruction or morbid fascination that filled Tartarus with such specific agonies? You might glimpse Ixion, bound eternally to a fiery, revolving wheel for attempting to seduce Hera, or the Danaids, 50 sisters condemned to eternally draw water in leaky sieves for murdering their husbands, and in the deepest reaches, the defeated Titans recall those primordial conflicts from Section 14 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods languish, bound in unbreakable chains, their monstrous forms forever imprisoned, a chilling reminder of Zeus's supreme power and his merciless victory over his divine predecessors. The air is filled with the unceasing sounds of suffering, the groans of Sisyphus, the frantic splashing of Tantalus, the clanging of Ixion's wheel, and the distant, despairing wails of countless other tormented souls. There is no respite, no hope of escape, no possibility of redemption. This is the realm of eternal punishment, where the consequences of divine displeasure are absolute and unending. The psychological toll on you, as a living observer, is immense. You witness firsthand the horrifying depths of divine wrath, realizing that your human capacity for understanding mercy and proportionality simply does not apply here. The justice of Tartarus is swift, unyielding, and utterly absolute, and its purpose is not rehabilitation, but eternal suffering, serving as a terrifying warning to all who dare to defy the gods. You feel the profound dread, the chilling realization that this is what awaits those who truly incur the gods' unforgiving wrath. You gaze into the swirling depths, listening to the symphony of eternal torment, and you understand that your worst nightmares pale in comparison to the agonizing reality of this cosmic prison. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its bleak meadows. It's about the terrifying reality of Tartarus. Your final destiny, if you are truly wicked, is a descent into eternal torment, transforming death into an unending nightmare of agonizing punishment. ensuring that the heavy price of defying the Olympians was paid not just in mortal suffering, but in a never-ending, excruciating cycle of retribution, a chilling testament to the terrifying consequences of divine justice and the ultimate, inescapable terror of cosmic damnation. Having been plunged into the agonizing depths of Tartarus, witnessing the eternal torments of the damned, your journey through Hades's domain finally turns to a far more hopeful, yet still exclusive realm, the Elysian Fields. Hero's Reward. Forget universal bliss or easily attained paradise. This was the rare, blessed destination reserved for the most virtuous heroes, the truly pious, and those specially favored by the gods, a realm of perpetual spring, gentle breezes, and joyful existence, offering a stark contrast to the bleakness of the asphodel meadows and the horrors of Tartarus. You quickly learn that achieving true happiness in the afterlife is an incredibly difficult, almost unattainable, aspiration, and that even in paradise, the shades often longed for their vibrant mortal lives. It's like being granted access to the most exclusive, beautiful resort imaginable, but very, very few people ever get a reservation. And even then, it's still not quite as good as being truly alive. You stand on a verdant plain, bathed in a soft, golden light that seems to emanate from no discernible source. The air is warm, fragrant with the scent of blooming flowers and sweet breezes. You hear the faint, joyful sounds of music, laughter, and pleasant conversation, a stark contrast to the wailing and groaning of other regions of the underworld. Beautiful groves of trees, shimmering rivers, and lush meadows stretch out before you, creating a landscape of serene beauty. This is Elysium, or the Elysian Fields, the blissful abode of the blessed, the ultimate reward for a life of exceptional virtue or divine favor. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the exclusivity of this heavenly realm is that the Elysian Fields were a distinct and highly exclusive region of the Greek underworld, reserved only for a select few souls, the most virtuous. The greatest heroes, often those with divine parentage or favor, and those initiated into certain mystery cults, offering a blessed existence of perpetual spring, happiness, and peace, in stark contrast to the bleak asphodel meadows where the majority of souls resided. This paradise was a privilege, not a right. Think about it. Your idea of heaven is open to everyone. Theirs was an invitation-only club. Imagine the inhabitants. You see shades whose forms are vibrant, not the insubstantial echoes of the asphodel meadows. Remember those aimless wanderers from Section 7. Their eyes are bright, their faces serene, and they engage in joyful activities, dancing, playing music, conversing about philosophy, or competing in gentle athletic contests. These are the souls of heroes like Achilles, though he famously preferred mortal life, even as a peasant, to being king of the dead here. Menelaus and Cadmus, enjoying a peaceful eternity. Their lives in the underworld are filled with purpose, a stark contrast to the dull oblivion that awaits the vast majority. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the almost existential ennui even in paradise and the Greeks' profound appreciation for mortal life is the philosophical concept that even the blessed souls in the Elysian Fields, despite their perfect existence, sometimes retained a longing for the vibrancy and tangible sensations of their mortal lives. The philosophers often emphasized that earthly life, with all its struggles, was ultimately more real and fulfilling than even the most blissful afterlife. Imagine being in paradise and still missing the discomforts and challenges of your mortal existence, because it simply felt more real, Historians still argue whether the detailed and often idyllic descriptions of the Elysian fields primarily served as a powerful incentive for ancient Greeks to live virtuous and heroic lives on Earth, offering a desirable albeit rare posthumous reward for exceptional conduct, or if their portrayal, even in its bliss, subtly reinforced the ultimate Greek philosophical emphasis on the supreme value and inherent superiority of vibrant mortal life, making even paradise feel secondary to a truly lived human existence. Was it about promoting virtue, or just affirming earthly life, that shaped Elysium's portrayal? Access to the Elysian fields was not gained solely by being good in a simple moral sense. Often, divine favor played a crucial role. Those descended from gods, or who had a direct connection to an Olympian, might be granted entry regardless of their earthly actions. Initiation into certain mystery cults, like the Eleusinian mysteries dedicated to Demeter and Persephone, also promised a more blessed afterlife, offering a pathway to Elysium that transcended mere heroism. The atmosphere is one of perpetual spring, never too hot, never too cold. The music is always melodious, the conversation always engaging. There are no struggles, no sorrows, no pain. This realm offers a complete release from the hardships and miseries of mortal life. Remember those countless suffering mortals from Section 12, mortal interactions, cruel whims, or the various specific torments from Section 13, divine justice unpredictable, harsh. It is a haven of peace, a reward for exceptional virtue. But the exclusivity of Elysium is a chilling reminder of its rarity. The vast majority of souls, as you've seen, were condemned to the bleak asphodel meadows. Only a precious few, the truly exceptional, were granted entry into this blessed paradise. This made the pursuit of heroism, of piety, of divine favor, an even more desperate and high-stakes endeavor for ambitious mortals in ancient Greece. You feel the gentle warmth, the serene beauty, and the profound sense of peace that permeates this blessed realm. You gaze at the vibrant shades, their faces serene, and you realize that this is the ultimate, rarest reward in the Greek afterlife. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its terrifying prisons. It's about the brutal exclusivity of its rewards. Your ultimate destiny, if you are truly fortunate, might be the Elysian fields, transforming death into a blissful, eternal existence, ensuring that the heavy price of mortality was paid not just in life's suffering, but in a lifelong, almost impossible, pursuit of virtue and divine favor. A constant reminder of humanity's profound longing for a paradise that only the truly exceptional could hope to achieve in the complex, often cruel, cosmos of ancient Greece. Having caught a glimpse of the blissful, yet exclusive, Elysian fields, your journey through Hades's domain now brings you to the crucial moment of reckoning judges of the dead final verdict. Forget a chaotic free-for-all in the afterlife. Souls in the Greek underworld faced an ultimate judgment, presided over by wise and incorruptible arbiters who weighed their earthly deeds, their piety, and their virtue, determining their eternal destiny with an unbending finality. You quickly learn that even in death, your actions carry profound consequences, and that your ultimate fate, be it eternal torment, aimless wandering, or blessed serenity, rests on the solemn, impartial judgment of ancient kings, turning the transition to the afterlife into a terrifying, yet necessary, moment of cosmic accountability. It's like standing before a supreme court. But the judges are legendary figures from ancient times, and their verdict literally decides where you spend eternity. You stand in a vast, shadowy hall within the underworld, perhaps near the palace of Hades himself. The air is still, heavy with profound solemnity and the unspoken weight of countless lives judged. Before you sit 3 formidable figures, enthroned in judgment. These are the judges of the dead Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. They are often depicted as wise, stern, and utterly impartial, having themselves been virtuous mortals or sons of Zeus in their earthly lives. Their gaze sweeps across the countless shades awaiting their verdict, discerning truth from deception with absolute clarity. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines this system of posthumous accountability is that in ancient Greek mythology, the souls of the deceased underwent a formal judgment by a set of impartial arbiters, primarily Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus, who weighed their earthly deeds and determined their final destination within the underworld, the bleak asphodel meadows for the common, Tartarus for the wicked, or the blessed Elysian fields for the virtuous. This judicial process ensured a degree of moral order and accountability in the afterlife, even if the definitions of virtue were complex. Think about it. Your entire life is essentially a trial, and your final destination is the verdict. Imagine standing before them. Your life, with all its deeds, good and ill, is laid bare. You might see the shades of others being judged a tyrant condemned to Tartarus. Remember those agonizing torments from Section 8. A pious farmer assigned to the asphodel meadows recall that bleak existence from Section 7, or a valiant hero granted passage to the Elysian fields. Section 9. The judges are incorruptible. They cannot be swayed by wealth, by earthly status, by pleas, or by bribes, unlike some earthly Roman justice, for example, which was riddled with graft and greed, from How Roman Politics Was a Horrifying Business, Section 9. Their judgment is based purely on the merits of your mortal existence, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the meticulousness and occasional grim humor of how judgments were made is the legendary task of Minos. While all 3 judges presided, Minos was often depicted as the final arbiter, holding a golden scepter and delivering the ultimate verdict. In some accounts, he used a divining rod to assign souls to their proper place, while in others, he heard their appeals after the initial judgment by the other 2. Imagine a cosmic appeals court where the chief judge wields a magical stick to decide if you go to eternal bliss or endless torment. Historians still argue whether the Greek myths of a posthumous judgment system, by providing a clear framework for divine accountability and the consequences of moral actions, primarily served as a powerful ethical deterrent for the living, encouraging virtuous behavior and piety in a world where earthly justice was often flawed, or if these narratives also served a deeper philosophical purpose, grappling with complex questions of free will. Fate recall that inescapable destiny from Section 10 of Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myth Sucked, and the ultimate meaning of human existence, making death a moment of profound cosmic reckoning. Was it about moral instruction or philosophical inquiry that shaped these tales of judgment? The River Lethe, the River of Forgetfulness, from Section 6, plays a crucial, albeit grim, role in this judgment. Souls assigned to the asphodel meadows or Tartarus would drink from its waters, stripping them of their memories and personalities, making their eternal existence either aimless in the meadows or perpetually agonizing in Tartarus without the solace of past joys. Only those destined for Elysium sometimes retained their full memories, a privilege in paradise. The act of losing your memories was, in many ways, a profound extension of your judgment. A second form of death, the judges of the dead. Themselves figures from renowned myths, embody the very principles of fairness and wisdom that were sometimes lacking in the Olympian pantheon. Above recall those cruel whims of the gods. Section 12 of Why Being Immortal in Greek Myth Sucked, which were often arbitrary. Their stern, unwavering impartiality provided a stark contrast to the capricious interventions of Zeus or Hera, offering a glimpse of true cosmic justice in an otherwise unpredictable universe. Their pronouncements are final. There is no appeal, no second chance. Once your destiny is assigned, your fate is sealed for eternity. You're moved to your designated realm. Whether it is the monotonous gloom of the Asphodel Meadows, the fiery torments of Tartarus, or the serene beauty of the Elysian Fields. This final verdict is the ultimate culmination of your mortal life, a chilling certainty that leaves no room for doubt or further intervention. You feel the cold air of the judgment hall, hear the solemn pronouncements, and witness the unwavering gaze of the judges of the dead. You present your life, your actions, your very essence, for their immutable assessment, knowing that this is the moment your eternal destiny is decided. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its bleak landscapes. It's about the brutal reality of its judges. Your ultimate fate, your very existence in the afterlife, is determined by a final, impartial verdict, transforming death into a terrifying, yet necessary, moment of cosmic accountability, ensuring that the heavy price of mortality was paid not just in life's suffering, but in a profound, unwavering judgment that defined your eternal reward or punishment. A constant reminder of the inescapable consequences of your earthly deeds in the complex and unforgiving cosmos of ancient Greece. Having faced the impartial, unyielding judgment of the judges of the dead, your journey through Hades's domain brings you into intimate contact with its most common inhabitants, ghosts and shades. Fading echoes, forget solid, terrifying apparitions. The vast majority of deceased souls in the Greek underworld were portrayed as insubstantial, ephemeral remnants of their former selves, bereft of strength, memory, or true personality, condemned to a bleak and purposeless existence. You quickly learn that death here is not a vibrant transformation, but a chilling descent into a shadowy, half-remembered oblivion, turning your eternal existence into a perpetual state of profound insignificance and fading identity. It's like being a permanent, very quiet, and increasingly translucent extra in a play that never ends, and you slowly forget all your lines, and who you even are. You wander through the vast, gloomy expanse of the underworld. Perhaps in the Asphodel Meadows, remember that bleak realm from Section 7, or along the banks of the silent rivers, recall those boundaries of death from Section 6. The air is cold, still, and heavy with a pervasive sense of melancholy and utter emptiness. You see countless other figures, drifting aimlessly, their forms indistinct, barely more than fleeting shadows. They are the shades, or idola, the insubstantial remnants of deceased mortals, and their presence is a constant reminder of the depressing reality of the Greek afterlife. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the nature of the afterlife for most Greeks is that the souls or shades, idola of the deceased in the Greek underworld, were typically portrayed as insubstantial, voiceless, and often amnesiac remnants of their former selves, lacking strength, personality, or purposeful activity, condemned to a bleak and unfulfilling existence in realms like the Asphodel Meadows, profoundly different from their vibrant mortal lives. Their existence was often characterized by a loss of individuality and memory. Think about it. Your eternal reward is essentially being a perpetually depressed, forgetful ghost. Imagine trying to interact with them. Their voices are mere whispers, like the rustle of dry leaves, almost impossible to distinguish. Their faces are blank, their eyes devoid of recognition. Most have drunk from the river Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Recall that terrifying river from Section 6, stripping them of their vibrant mortal memories, their individual personalities, and all the joys, sorrows, and achievements that defined their earthly lives. They exist in a state of profound oblivion, a chilling form of mental death that makes them mere echoes of who they once were, unable to truly connect or remember their past. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the Greeks' profound despair about this common afterlife, even for heroes, is the famous encounter between Odysseus and the shade of Achilles in Homer's Odyssey. When Odysseus, visiting the underworld, praises Achilles' status as a great hero even in death, Achilles famously replies that he would rather be the lowliest peasant alive, slaving for another, than king over all the dead in this dreary realm. Recall this poignant lament from Section 1's Introduction. To give him strength and clarity to speak, Odysseus had to offer him the blood of a sacrifice. Imagine having to offer literal blood to your deceased hero just so he can remember who he is and talk to you for a minute, confirming just how utterly insubstantial and unsatisfying their existence was in the underworld. Historians still argue whether the bleak portrayal of the Greek underworld and the insubstantial nature of its shades primarily served as a pragmatic deterrent for ancient Greeks, encouraging them to live virtuous and productive lives on earth by making the afterlife undesirable, thereby emphasizing the supreme value of mortal existence. Or if it was also a philosophical reflection on the inherent tragedy of death and the ephemeral nature of human consciousness, acknowledging that even the greatest life eventually fades into insignificance and oblivion. Was it about promoting earthly virtue, or simply a grim acceptance of existential fading? There is no joy here, no purpose, no meaningful activity. The shades engage in no meaningful conversation unless temporarily revived by blood. Like Achilles, no grand feasts, no heroic endeavors. They simply exist, a vast multitude of forgotten selves, perpetually wandering a gray, monotonous landscape. This profound lack of engagement, this utter absence of meaning, was considered a chilling fate for the ancient Greeks, who valued vivid life, intellectual pursuit, and active participation in society. The only exceptions, as you know, are the few fortunate souls destined for the Elysian Fields Section Nicht, who retained their memories and enjoyed a blessed existence, or the eternally tormented in Tartarus Section 8, whose suffering was a grim reminder of their deeds. But for the common mortal, for the vast majority, the fate was the Asphodel Meadows, a quiet, joyless oblivion. Your own form, if you're a newly arrived soul, might feel insubstantial, your thoughts less clear, your memories already beginning to fray at the edges. You feel the cold, still air, the profound sense of emptiness, and the chilling realization that this is what awaits most mortals. You gaze at the blank faces of the wandering shades, knowing that your own memories, your own vibrant personality, could one day fade into such an indistinct shadow, a mere echo of the life you once lived. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its terrifying prisons. It's about the brutal reality of its inhabitants. Your final destiny is an eternal existence as a fleeting, insubstantial shade, transforming death from a release into a chilling plunge into profound insignificance, ensuring that the heavy price of mortality was paid not just in life suffering, but in a long, monotonous, and utterly joyless oblivion. A constant reminder of humanity's profound dread of fading into utter meaninglessness in the vast, gray expanse of the Greek underworld, where even your own identity eventually becomes a forgotten whisper, having encountered the fading echoes of the dead in the bleak asphodel meadows. Your journey through Hades's domain now turns to an even rarer and infinitely more perilous phenomenon: mortal visitors, living trespassers. Forget the finality of death. A few legendary heroes, driven by desperate love, impossible quests, or divine command, dared to defy the ultimate boundary, venturing alive into the terrifying underworld, facing its myriad dangers and the wrath of its unyielding rulers. You quickly learn that crossing into the realm of the dead while still breathing is an act of unimaginable courage, profound desperation, and a gamble with cosmic laws that rarely tolerate such transgression, transforming a mortal's quest into a terrifying, almost suicidal journey into oblivion and back. It's like being the only living person at a graveyard full of ghosts, and your goal is to break in, steal something, and then somehow, magically, walk back out through locked gates. You stand at one of the fabled entrances to the underworld, perhaps a dark cave in Greece, or a subterranean passage shrouded in perpetual mist. The air is cold, heavy with the scent of damp earth and profound dread. Unlike the passive shades you've encountered, you are still alive, your heart pounding, your breath visible in the gloom. You are attempting to do what few mortals have ever achieved: to enter the realm of the dead and, against all odds, return to the land of the living. This act is considered a grave transgression, a direct challenge to the cosmic order and the absolute rule of Hades. Remember him as grim, unyielding. From Section 2. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the extraordinary nature of such ventures is that ancient Greek myths recount extremely rare and perilous journeys by a select few living mortals, Odysseus, Heracles, Orpheus, Psyche into the underworld, often requiring divine aid, trickery, or immense bravery to achieve specific impossible tasks, rescue loved ones, or gain forbidden knowledge, highlighting the profound difficulty and sacrilegious nature of trespassing in the realm of the dead. Such journeys were almost universally condemned by the gods, and survivors were seen as truly exceptional. Think about it. Your idea of a daring adventure might be climbing a mountain. Theirs was literally breaking into hell. Imagine the motivation. Orpheus, the legendary musician, descended into the underworld out of desperate love, hoping to bring back his deceased wife Eurydice. Heracles, in one of his impossible labors, ventured there to capture Cerberus, that terrifying three-headed guardian. From Section 5, Odysseus went to consult the prophet Tiresias for guidance on his journey home. Psyche traveled to gather a beauty ointment from Persephone as part of a trial. Each journey was driven by an immense, personal imperative, pushing mortals to defy the very laws of life and death. A particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the specific tools living mortals used to bypass the underworld's defenses beyond brute force is the reliance on music or subtle trickery. Orpheus famously charmed Cerberus with his lyre and enchanting songs that from Section 5, Psyche distracted the ferocious hound with honey cakes laced with a sleeping potion. These nonviolent methods highlight the cunning required to circumvent the direct, overwhelming power of the underworld's guardians, Imagine trying to talk your way into a maximum security prison, or bring snacks for the guard dogs, instead of fighting your way in, and it actually works. Historians still argue whether the consistent portrayal of mortals successfully, albeit perilously, entering and exiting the underworld in Greek myths primarily served to emphasize the extraordinary nature of heroes and their unique connection to the divine. Providing a narrative means to bridge the gap between human and divine realms. Or if these narratives also served a deeper philosophical or ritualistic purpose, possibly reflecting mystery cult initiations or shamanistic journeys that symbolically explored death and rebirth, making the mythical journey a metaphor for spiritual transformation. Was it about heroic exceptionalism or spiritual allegory that allowed mortals to visit Hades? The dangers faced by these living trespassers were immense, far exceeding those of the deceased shades. They had to bypass the terrifying guardians Charon, the unyielding ferryman from Section 4 who might refuse passage to the living, and Cerberus, the ferocious gatekeeper Section 5 who would tear living flesh apart. They had to navigate the treacherous rivers, the Styx, Acheron, Cocytus, Phlegethon, and Lethe from Section 6, each with its own perils. They risked the wrath of Hades and Persephone, remember the abducted queen from Section 3, who rarely tolerated living intruders in their sacred domain. Beyond the physical dangers, there was the profound psychological toll, the eternal gloom. The mournful whispers of the shades recall those fading echoes from Section 11, and the chilling finality of the realm could drive a mortal mind to madness. The raw terror of being completely cut off from the living world, with no guarantee of return, was a constant, gnawing anxiety. Even if they succeeded in their quest, their return journey was fraught with peril, and their lives were often forever changed. Orpheus famously lost Eurydice again by looking back. Heracles suffered greatly after capturing Cerberus. These journeys, even when successful, left indelible marks, scars on the soul that spoke of profound encounters with death. You feel the cold dread of venturing into the unknown depths, the thumping of your own living heart, a stark contrast to the silence of the shades. You attempt to navigate the treacherous path, constantly vigilant for unseen threats, knowing that this is a place where you do not belong, and where every rule is designed to keep you from escaping. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim landscapes, it's about the terrifying reality of mortal visitors. Your rare, perilous journey into the realm of the dead. Transforming your mortal quest into a desperate, almost suicidal defiance of cosmic laws ensures that the heavy price of forbidden knowledge or desperate love was often paid in profound suffering, immense peril, and the terrifying knowledge that you were a living trespasser in a domain meant only for the dead. A chilling testament to humanity's daring, but ultimately fragile, attempts to overcome the absolute boundaries of life and death. Having witnessed the extraordinary, perilous feats of mortals daring to trespass into the underworld, your understanding of Hades's domain deepens as you consider a curious contrast, divine interference limited reach. Forget the frequent, often capricious interventions of the Olympians in the mortal world. Remember those cruel whims from Section 12 of Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myth Sucked. The gods of Mount Olympus, for all their immense power and endless squabbles, rarely ventured into the dark realm of Hades, preferring to avoid its grim finality and its unyielding ruler, turning the underworld into a sacred, yet largely isolated, sphere of influence. You quickly learn that even the most powerful deities respected the absolute boundaries of death, and that their reach, however vast, often stopped abruptly at the gates of Hades' kingdom. It's like being a powerful politician, but there's one specific, very grim region of your country that you just never, ever visit because it's too depressing, or too dangerous, or simply not your jurisdiction. You stand in the perpetual gloom of the underworld, observing the countless shades and the grim landscape. You recall the vivid stories of Zeus hurling thunderbolts, Hera inflicting torment, Apollo sending plagues, and Poseidon causing storms in the upper world. But here, in Hades' domain, their direct presence is conspicuously absent. The air is still, solemn, almost entirely devoid of the vibrant, volatile energy that characterizes Mount Olympus. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the unique nature of the underworld in Greek cosmology is that the Olympian gods, despite their immense power over the mortal world and other divine realms, rarely ventured into the underworld or Hades' direct domain, showing a distinct respect for its boundaries and its ruler's authority, and only did so for crucial specific purposes, to retrieve Persephone, or on rare missions for Zeus, highlighting its unique and often feared status as a realm of ultimate finality, largely separate from Olympian caprice. Their absence underscored the absolute nature of death. Think about it. Even the all-powerful gods found the underworld too grim for a casual visit. Imagine the few, rare exceptions to this rule. Hermes, the messenger god, often served as the psychopomp, guiding the souls of the dead to the underworld. He was one of the few gods who regularly traversed the boundary, but his role was strictly functional, a guide, not an intervener in Hades' rule. Apollo, briefly, during his search for his son Asclepius, who was struck down by Zeus. Remember that from Section 6 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods, ventured near the underworld. Zeus himself was only seen interacting with Hades to negotiate Persephone's return. Recall her abducted queen story from Section 3, an act driven by Demeter's world-ending grief. Section 11 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods, not by a desire to explore the underworld, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the discomfort and profound fear the Olympians had for Hades' realm is their reluctance to even swear oaths by the Styx unless absolutely necessary. Remember that sacred river from Section 6, 5 rivers, boundaries of death and oaths and prophecies, unbreakable bonds from Why Being Immortal in Greek Myths Sucked. Section 6. An oath sworn by the river Styx was the most binding and unbreakable oath in the cosmos, even for the gods, and breaking it brought terrible divine consequences, suggesting the river's power was a terrifying force even to the Olympians themselves. Imagine a group of all-powerful beings who are terrified of swearing on a particular sacred river because it binds them irrevocably and can inflict horrifying consequences. Historians still argue whether the apparent hands-off approach of the Olympian gods towards the underworld and their reluctance to frequently interfere with Hades' domain was primarily a deliberate theological construct designed to emphasize the natural, inescapable finality of death and the distinct separation of life and afterlife in Greek cosmology, thereby reinforcing the ultimate power of Hades and the Fates. Or if it also reflected a pragmatic mythological understanding that too much divine meddling in the realm of the dead would simply undermine the very concept of an afterlife and the moral consequences of mortal actions, making it a necessary narrative constraint. Was it about cosmic order or narrative consistency that limited divine interference? The Olympians, vibrant and often tumultuous in their interactions with the living world, generally preferred the light, the beauty, and the drama of Mount Olympus and the mortal realm. Hades's realm was grim, dark, and filled with the silent. Sorrowful shades remember those fading echoes from section 11. It was a place of finality, and the Olympians, being immortal, chose to avoid it unless absolutely compelled. They might send their messengers, or allow heroes to trespass under specific circumstances. Recall mortal visitors, living trespassers from section 12, but they themselves rarely lingered. This divine absence underscored the absolute power of Hades within his domain. His rule was unchallenged, his decisions final. The laws of the underworld were rigid, immutable, and even Zeus, the king of the gods, respected them. This meant that once a soul entered Hades's realm, their fate was sealed. Largely beyond the capricious whims of the other Olympians, you feel the profound stillness of the underworld, the chilling absence of the vibrant, often chaotic, energies of the Olympian gods. You realize that while their influence might stretch across the mortal world, here, in the realm of the dead, Hades's authority is absolute, and their intervention is strictly limited. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim landscapes or its terrifying inhabitants. It's about the brutal reality of divine interference, your eternal destiny. Once you cross into Hades's domain, is largely free from the unpredictable whims of the other Olympians, transforming death into a realm of ultimate finality, ensuring that the heavy price of mortality was paid in a chilling, permanent separation from the capricious, often destructive, attention of the gods of the upper world, a constant reminder that even divine power had its limits, and that death was a boundary few dared to cross. Having witnessed the rare and limited reach of Olympian interference within Hades's domain, your journey through the underworld now leads you back to its most terrifying and infamous aspect. Punishments, eternal suffering. Forget mere spiritual discomfort or temporary penance. The Greek underworld, particularly its deepest abyss, Tartarus, was home to specific, agonizing, and perpetual torments meticulously devised by the gods to punish those who committed the most heinous crimes against them or humanity, ensuring an eternity of relentless, soul-crushing torment. You quickly learn that divine justice, when truly unleashed, is a force of terrifying, creative cruelty, and that defying the Olympians comes with a price that literally lasts for eternity, turning the afterlife into a horrifying, inescapable nightmare. It's like being sentenced to a very personalized, very painful, and absolutely inescapable cosmic torture chamber, where your punishment is uniquely tailored to your worst crime, and it never, ever stops. For millions of years, you stand at the edge of Tartarus, that vast gaping chasm. Remember that horrifying prison from section 8. The air here is thick with the scent of sulfur, the distant sounds of ceaseless wailing, the clanging of chains, and the faint, chilling screams of unimaginable agony. This isn't the quiet melancholy of the Asphodel Meadows section 7, nor the serene peace of Elysium section 9. It's a cacophony of suffering, a place of active, relentless, and eternal torment, meticulously designed by the gods to ensure no respite for the damned. One mainstream historical fact that utterly defines the ultimate horror of the Greek underworld is that Tartarus was the deepest and darkest region of the Greek underworld. Serving as a cosmic prison for the most heinous sinners, it is Tantalus, Sisyphus, Ixion, and defeated divine enemies, the Titans, where they endured eternal agonizing and often symbolic punishments meticulously tailored to their transgressions, representing the most severe form of divine retribution and a place of absolute, inescapable torment. Its grim reality was meant to instill profound fear in both mortals and gods, serving as the ultimate deterrent against defiance. Think about it. Your idea of a bad prison is a small cell. Theirs was an infinite abyss of eternal, personalized torment, where the punishment directly reflected your crime. Imagine the agonizing fates of the most famous inhabitants, those who suffered the gods' most creative wrath. You might see Sisyphus, a cunning mortal who famously cheated death multiple times and practiced deceit. For his deception and arrogance, a classic example of hubris. Remember that from Section 5, he was condemned to eternally roll a massive boulder up a steep hill. You watch as he strains, pushing the stone inch by agonizing inch, his muscles bulging, his sweat pouring. Just as he nears the summit, the boulder inevitably slips from his grasp, rolling back down to the bottom, forcing him to begin the futile, endless labor all over again. His torment is physical, but also profoundly psychological. An eternal, meaningless struggle against an unbreakable cosmic law, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the gods' perverse creativity and their long memory for grudges is the specific nature of Tantalus's torment. For daring to test the god's omniscience by murdering his own son Pelops and serving him to the gods in a feast, a horrific act of sacrilege and cannibalism. Recalling those origin myths' primordial violence from Section 14 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods. Tantalus was condemned to stand in a pool of water with delicious fruit hanging just above his head. Yet, whenever he tried to drink, the water receded, and whenever he reached for the fruit, the branches moved just out of reach, condemning him to eternal agonizing hunger and thirst. Recall this example from Divine Justice Unpredictable, harsh, in Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myth Sucked. Section 13. Imagine being perpetually tormented by the very things you desire most, forever just out of reach. A cosmic prank designed to inflict endless psychological agony, making your punishment a direct reflection of your original transgression. Historians still argue whether the detailed and often gruesome descriptions of Tartarus's punishments, by providing a vivid and terrifying vision of eternal retribution for moral transgressions, primarily served as a powerful ethical deterrent against impious behavior and a reinforcement of ethical norms in ancient Greek society, influencing human conduct, or if they also reflected a deeper cultural fascination with suffering and the limits of human endurance, making the punishments a dramatic exploration of extreme torment and a means for ancient Greeks to grapple with the consequences of ultimate evil. Was it about moral instruction or morbid fascination that filled Tartarus with such specific agonies? You might glimpse Ixion, a mortal who tried to seduce Hera. Remember her jealous, vengeful nature from Section 3 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods, condemned to be eternally bound to a fiery, revolving wheel. Or the Danaids, 50 sisters condemned to eternally draw water in leaky sieves, endlessly attempting to fill a bottomless jar for murdering their husbands on their wedding night. And in the deepest reaches, the defeated Titans recall those primordial conflicts from Section 14 of The Disturbing Truth About Greek Gods languish, bound in unbreakable chains, their monstrous forms forever imprisoned, their suffering a chilling reminder of Zeus's supreme power and his merciless victory over his divine predecessors. The air is filled with the unceasing sounds of suffering, the groans of Sisyphus as his boulder slips, the frantic splashing of Tantalus, the clanging of Ixion's wheel, and the distant, despairing wails of countless other tormented souls. There is no respite, no hope of escape, no possibility of redemption. This is the realm of eternal punishment, where the consequences of divine displeasure are absolute and unending. A chilling testament to the gods' unforgiving nature. The psychological toll on you, as a living observer, is immense. You witness firsthand the horrifying depths of divine wrath, realizing that your human capacity for understanding mercy and proportionality simply does not apply here. The justice of Tartarus is swift, unyielding, and utterly absolute, and its purpose is not rehabilitation, but eternal suffering, serving as a terrifying warning to all who dare to defy the gods or to commit acts of profound wickedness. You feel the profound dread, the chilling realization that this is what awaits those who truly incur the gods' unforgiving wrath. You gaze into the swirling depths, listening to the symphony of eternal torment, and you understand that your worst nightmares pale in comparison to the agonizing reality of this cosmic prison. The awful truth about Hades isn't just about its grim ruler or its bleak landscapes. It's about the terrifying reality of its punishments. Your final destiny, if you're truly wicked, is a descent into eternal torment, transforming death into an unending nightmare of agonizing retribution, ensuring that the heavy price of defying the Olympians or committing unforgivable sins was paid not just in mortal suffering, but in a never-ending, excruciating cycle of divine retribution, a chilling testament to the terrifying consequences of divine justice and the ultimate, inescapable terror of cosmic damnation. After enduring the grim rule of Hades, the terrifying presence of Persephone, the chilling toll of Charon, the ferocious guard of Cerberus, the liquid boundaries of the 5 rivers, the bleak monotony of the asphodel meadows, the agonizing depths of Tartarus and its eternal torments, the exclusive bliss of the Elysian fields, the unyielding judgment of the judges of the dead, the insubstantial reality of shades, the perilous journeys of mortal visitors, the limited reach of divine interference, and the brutal reality of eternal punishments. You finally emerge from our journey through the Greek underworld to confront its complex and enduring legacy fear. Reflection. Hope, the ancient Greek conception of Hades, for all its grimness and terror, was not merely a collection of terrifying myths. It profoundly shaped their worldview, their philosophy, their art, and continues to influence our own understanding of death, judgment, and the afterlife, serving as a timeless reflection on mortality and human destiny. You realize that the very dread they instilled also provided a framework for life, etching a grim reality into the very fabric of their existence and ours. It's like looking at a profound, ancient work of art that is both terrifying and beautiful, and realizing its depth lies in its unflinching portrayal of humanity's most fundamental questions about what happens after the final breath. You reflect on the pervasive fear that permeated ancient Greek life regarding death and the underworld. Mortals performed elaborate burial rituals. Remember Charon's toll, Section 4, and made offerings not just out of piety, but out of a profound dread of the bleak afterlife awaiting most souls, the asphodel meadows. Section 7, or the terrifying torment of Tartarus. Section 8. This fear served as a powerful motivator for living a virtuous life, or at least avoiding hubris. Remember that from Why Being a Mortal in Greek Myth Sucked. Section 5. In hopes of a better posthumous fate in the Elysian fields. Section 9. However rare, one mainstream historical fact that utterly defines this complex legacy is that the ancient Greek conception of the underworld, while often bleak and a source of profound fear, profoundly influenced Greek philosophy, i.e., geology, Plato's allegories of the soul, tragedy exploring fate and consequence, and funerary practices, serving as a powerful moral compass and a framework for understanding mortality that continues to shape Western thought and artistic depictions of death and the afterlife. Hades was not just a place, it was a profound philosophical and cultural concept. Think about it, your idea of heaven and hell, even if different, is still influenced by these ancient Greek notions of posthumous judgment and distinct realms for souls. Imagine the philosophical reflections it inspired. Thinkers grappled with questions of the soul's immortality, the nature of justice, recall the judges of the dead. Section 10. And the meaning of a well-lived life in the face of an often bleak eternity. The tragedies, particularly those of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides, frequently explored themes of inherited curses, remember, heroic lineage, curses and calamity from Why Being Immortal in Greek Myths Sucked, Section 14, and Inescapable Fate. Section 10 of Why Being Immortal in Greek Myths Sucked, set against the backdrop of the grim underworld, forcing audiences to confront human suffering and divine will, a particularly quirky tidbit that demonstrates the persistent hope for a better afterlife, despite the general bleakness of Hades, is the rise of mystery cults like the Orphic and Eleusinian mysteries in later periods. These secretive religious groups offered initiates the promise of a more blessed existence in the afterlife, often a clearer path to the Elysian fields, through special rituals, purification, and the worship of specific deities like Demeter and Persephone. Remember her abducted queen story from Section 3. This provided a form of hope and a more optimistic outlook on death than the traditional myths offered. Imagine a society where people seek out secret spiritual clubs, desperately hoping for a better afterlife than the universally depressing one everyone else believes in, highlighting a deep human yearning for salvation. Historians still argue whether the grim portrayal of the Greek underworld, Asphodel Meadows, was primarily a theological and philosophical tool designed to explicitly emphasize the supreme value and vibrancy of mortal life, encouraging Greeks to seek kleos glory and live fully in the present, thereby making the afterlife deliberately unappealing by comparison. Or if its bleakness was also a more accurate reflection of deep societal anxieties about death and oblivion in an era without strong concepts of personal resurrection or a universally promised paradise, making the myth a candid expression of fear. Was it about promoting earthly glory, or simply expressing profound fear that shaped their views of Hades? The legacy of Hades permeates Western culture. The names of its rivers, Styx, Lethe, are still used today. The image of Charon, the ferryman, and Cerberus, the guardian hound, are iconic figures in literature and art. The very concept of a stratified afterlife, with distinct realms for punishment and reward, laid conceptual groundwork that would influence later Abrahamic religions and their notions of heaven and hell. Even the flaws of the gods and the terrifying nature of divine justice prompted reflection on the nature of power, morality, and justice itself. Remember, divine justice, unpredictable, harsh, from Section 13 of Why Being Immortal in Greek Myths Sucked. The myths provided a complex lens through which to examine human behavior and its cosmic consequences. You stand now, reflecting on this ancient realm of the dead, realizing that its enduring power lies not just in its terror, but in its profound reflection of universal human concerns. The awful truth about what Hades was actually like is precisely what makes its legacy so compelling. It is the unflinching portrayal of fear, the exploration of profound suffering, and the quiet hope for something better, however rare, that continues to resonate. Its grim reality served as a powerful reminder of mortality's finality, but also as a catalyst for living a meaningful life, forever shaping the way humanity has contemplated the ultimate journey, reminding us that even in the darkest corners of the ancient world, the human spirit sought meaning, and sometimes a glimmer of hope beyond the veil of death. Now, as the shadows of the underworld fade and the whispers of ancient shades grow quiet, let the stillness of your room embrace you. The grim ferryman, the three-headed hound, the bleak meadows, and the eternal torments are safely in the past, part of a history that now dissolves into the gentle hum of your fan. You've journeyed through a world where death was a profound and terrifying reality. And now, it's time for you to find your own peaceful rest. Let your mind unwind, your muscles relax, and sink into a deep, undisturbed sleep, far from the complex and chilling realms of ancient Hades. End of script. Sweet dreams.